And who are you?
The Ronnie.
Stay back!
Hey folks, how's it going? Well, it looks like a lot of folks' suspicions about Mrs. Flood were confirmed in this episode, including yours truly. Yes, not to toot my own horn, but I did make a video about a year ago where I went over the entire history of the Ronnie and made a prediction that Mrs. Flood would in fact turn out to be the Ronnie when her identity was revealed. I'm now more convinced than ever that Susan Twist and possibly Mrs. Flood are the Ronnie.
Nothing to do with me.
Now, at the time that I predicted this, we were in the midst of season 1, so I didn't have all the information we have now to go off of. So I was focusing a lot on Susan Twist. That's why I made that prediction, because I thought that maybe Susan Twist and Mrs. Flood were two different iterations of the same character. They were both different regenerations of the Ronnie. The Ronnie is a known dabbler in time experiments. Could Susan Twist or the mysterious Mrs. Flood be different regenerations of the Ronnie? Now, it didn't happen the way I predicted, but what did end up happening is we got this bi-generation at the end. So we did end up with two Ronnies who are going to be helping each other in the finale, weirdly enough. But regardless, I'm pretty happy with my predictions. I know I'm not the only person who predicted or thought that she might be the Ronnie, but I'm still happy I'm right. So there's that. Speaking of which, now that we have the Ronnie as our big villain for the upcoming 2-part finale, you probably want to know all there is to know about her. In which case, I cannot recommend highly enough that you check out my History of the Ronnie video. That video goes over the entire on-screen history of the Ronnie, all of her televised appearances, all 3 of the stories that she appeared in classic Doctor Who, so that you're all caught up for the finale. You know the entire history between the Doctor and the Ronnie, why she hates him, why she wants revenge. She has plenty of reasons, let me tell you. Now the Ronnie is amongst us, and we are hopefully primed for an epic 2-part finale. But enough about that one big reveal. What else happened in this story? Was it any good? Let's dig into it. Ncuti Gatwa once again delivers a very solid performance in this story. I mentioned earlier that I appreciated seeing his darker, more intimidating side in Lucky Day, and that darkness gets dialed up to 11 here. When he went all hologram, torture, fugue state, I was on board. It's not that I want the Doctor to be a violent, brutal psychopath. I just want to see the Doctor with layers to his character. Seeing the normally pacifist Doctor get pushed to the point where he actively wants to hurt someone is unexpected and gives him some much-needed shades of gray. Belinda is also once again reliable as ever. Her standout moment is when the reality of the situation hits her, and she begins to panic and needs to be talked down by Cora. The singer, Cora, has some nice moments between herself and Belinda, and then delivers the song at the end. While I think she does a fine job on the role acting-wise, I think she's let down a bit during her big emotional scene, getting drowned out by the overly dramatic score, courtesy of Murray Gold.
By force. Helio was the most harmless world in the sky. And the corporation bought the entire planet, including its population, for one reason only: to harvest their hellbody.
And then a somewhat corny emotional song at the end, again, courtesy of Murray Gold. The gay couple, Mike and Gary, are a charming double act of a bickering yet loving married couple. I like the running gag that they both keep ending up being just exactly the person the Doctor needs to enact his plan, and them both becoming increasingly charmed by the Doctor as he continuously lavishes them with praise. Then we've got the villains, Kid and Wynn. Kid does fine with what he's given, but he never comes off as truly intimidating. He seems more like a dumb punk than a brilliant mastermind, and I never really doubted that the Doctor would defeat him. He and Wynn do portray the young, nihilistic nature of these characters well, coming across more like hopelessly depressed teenagers than ruthless killers. The overall portrayal of these villains gives them a feeling of being desperate victims themselves in a way. I do appreciate this, as this reflects a sad reality within our world as well. Not every individual who takes up arms to fight an oppressive force is automatically evil. These characters may have gone way too far, attempted a mass genocide, but you can tell that it comes from a place of deep pain and righteous anger, an attempt to hit back as hard as they can at a universe that carelessly exploited and destroyed their world just for profit. Next up, we've got those cameos by Ryland Clark and Graham Norton. What can I say? I'm not from the UK, so while I do vaguely recognize these people, I just don't have the same, oh my god, it's that guy reaction that I assume the UK audience would have. I've also never seen Eurovision, so I'm sure there were tons of in-jokes that just flew right over my head. In the end, they seemed to fit into the larger-than-life song and dance vibe of this episode, so I didn't mind them. And last but not least, we have Mrs. Flood, played by Anita Dobson, and Archie Punjabi is the newly revealed, brand new The Rani. One fun detail is that throughout the story, she's wearing this very telltale red coat with big shoulder pads, which is a direct homage to Kate O'Mara's outfit in Time in the Rani, her most famous costume. I'll talk a little bit more about their performance towards the end of this episode. Let's talk briefly about production and effects. This episode looks incredible, as has become the norm for Doctor Who. But there are some especially gorgeous and striking shots during the course of this story. The opening shot, where the camera pushes in and then flies over the space stadium, really sells the scope of the setting. It also feels like it just has to be a direct reference to the opening shot from The Trial of a Time Lord, the 1986 season-long story starring Colin Baker. This whole episode has a bit of an 80s Who vibe to it. From the campy elements to the pink and cyan neon pastel color palette. Considering who shows up towards the end of this, it makes a lot of sense. The sequence where the airlock bursts and everyone starts floating up out into space has some absolutely gorgeous shots in it, culminating in the iconic wide shot of the entire space station, with thousands of tiny floating bodies silhouetted against the night sky. All of the floating sequences look really solid, actually, and don't fall into the trap of unconvincing green screen the way that some wirework shots can end up. The ice forming over people is also well done. Okay, now let's jump into the story itself. One of the major elements that made me like this story so much is something that Doctor Who has long ago learned how to do well. We get an elongated sequence where the heroes are just hanging out, chilling, talking about life and stuff. Meanwhile, all around them, we're seeing little hints here and there that something's just not right. A bunch of disparate, seemingly unconnected moments are happening all over the place, leading up to something big. Mrs. Flood is here once again, in the audience, observing the Doctor. It appears that she has some sort of advanced tech that she's using to lock onto the Doctor's Vindicator. I'm guessing this is what caused the TARDIS's doors to blow off their hinges at the end of the episode. I love how the Doctor slowly picks up on things around him, starting with the feeds being different on his monitor. The tension, as all the pieces slowly start to fall into place, continues to ratchet up at a nice pace, crescendoing in the moment when Kid finally bursts the bubble and sends thousands of people careening off into the cold emptiness of space. This moment was truly shocking, and quite horrifying to watch. I assumed that the Doctor, being a Time Lord and all, and the main character, would somehow survive the freezing, airless environment of space, but I did think in the moment that all the other people were truly doomed, creating a viscerally intense disaster sequence reminiscent of something like the sinking of the Titanic. The way this sequence is shot, directed, and edited is fantastic, and the effects are top-notch. After Belinda and the Doctor are separated, I like how panicked Belinda gets. It just makes her seem human and relatable. This is the first time she's been truly separated from the Doctor and the TARDIS since she first came on board, and it seems like the reality of the situation is finally actually hitting her, in a way she hadn't allowed up until this moment. She's mentioned her concerns and desires to get back to her parents, but this is the first time she's done so, and the Doctor hasn't been there to calm her fears. Not only that, but it's his absence that makes her fear of never getting back home especially real. Meanwhile, the Doctor shows off his supernatural luck by snagging a nearby confetti cannon and then rocketing himself into one of the only airlocks that's still populated by people who can open the door for him. And those two people just so happen to be the exact combination of technological and medical expertise that he'll need in order to accomplish the mission ahead. How convenient! A familiar face starts butting into his consciousness, trying to rein him in. Yes, we're hit with our first major reveal, that the Doctor's very first companion, his own granddaughter Susan, has finally returned to the series. Her return was teased last season, but that ended up just being a red herring for the Susan Twist reveal. But now she's back for real, which I think is really cool. This is a pretty exciting moment for a classic fan such as myself, and I'm extremely curious to see where they're going with this. The Doctor discovers the villain's true plans to commit mass genocide, and it puts a piece of ice in his heart, as he puts it. Like I said earlier, I really like the Doctor's turn to darkness here. It seems like Susan is reaching out to her grandfather after all of these years, specifically because he's starting to lean into the dark side more. Maybe in an alternate reality, the Doctor actually killed Kid, causing some sort of a massive snowball effect of a catastrophe. Maybe this is the origin story of the Valeyard. Sorry, just, got a little carried away there, okay? I think I'm getting a little too hyped up with all the throwbacks being thrown into my face one after the other. You got Susan, you got the Ronnie, you got 80s camp, I guess I'm just getting a little hyped up, a little over speculative. So let's tamp that down a little bit. The Doctor, now in full-on vengeful mode, easily takes out the villain. I love seeing the Doctor go so hard in this sequence. He has a lot of badass moments, like blowing up the robots' heads without even turning around. And his whole electric glove torture sequence is a harrowing, yet disturbingly cathartic moment. The scene does a good job of showing just how dangerous the Doctor can be when he's out of control. And interestingly enough, mirrors Kate Stewart's loss of control at the end of Lucky Day just a couple episodes ago. They do weave a decent amount of social commentary into the story, which I did appreciate. A meditation on how terrorism is born out of the ashes of tragedy and desperation. The villains, for all their sneering bravado, come off more like sad, damaged orphans rather than black-hearted killers. And they make it known explicitly that the song contest is being sponsored by an evil megacorporation that destroyed their entire home planet just to acquire an ingredient that's used as a flavoring for the honey that first world citizens obliviously snack on. It's a very clear metaphor for how our rich first world countries ravage the lands and exploit the people of less developed countries. It also represents how otherwise normal people can become extremists when they grow up in an extremely unjust, oppressive environment. Cora is revealed to be a Hellion in hiding, having shorn her horns. Her race is clearly demonized and racially discriminated against, and her actions mirror the real-life phenomenon of passing to fit into a bigoted society. Speaking of that oppressive megacorporation, it's called Poppy Honey, as in Poppy, captain of the Space Babies, who showed up for an unusually spooky cameo last episode. Did Poppy become the CEO of an evil corporation? Was her torching of the Booger Monster last season foreshadowing of the fiery devastation she would unleash upon the poppy fields of countless planets in her cold-hearted pursuit of money and power? Is Poppy the mysterious boss we keep hearing about? A boss baby, if you will. Will Space Babies end up being an incredibly relevant, unskippable episode in this era of Doctor Who? It's sure starting to look like it. The Doctor figures out how to thaw everyone back to life, and the day is saved. Or so it would seem. We're treated to a final song in honor of the Hellions, a clearly controversial and brave political statement for Cora to make. While I didn't love the song, as I was watching it, I kept thinking to myself, wicked, this ain't. I appreciate the sentiment of it, and I thought it was a touching and fitting end to the story. One that did not justify or forgive the terrorists for what they tried to do, but one that does acknowledge the injustices that their people have faced. It also helped that the song was in an alien language, so we didn't have to deal with potentially cringy English lyrics. That was a good call. The Doctor and Belinda get a final lowdown from Digital Graham Norton, discovering that yes, the planet Earth was destroyed on May 24th, 2025. The Doctor and Belinda rush to the TARDIS and attempt to give it one more try. The TARDIS doors explode off their hinges and we cut to end credits. Quite a shocking way to end the episode. Only not quite. Turns out there's one more person that Mike and Gary still need to revive. And lo and behold, it just so happens to be Mrs. Flood yet again. After confirming that the Doctor is gone, Mrs. Flood reveals that she has a fatal injury, but no worries, she has a trick to take care of it. Then she announces that she's the Ronnie and regenerates. Or should I say, bi-generates. Yes, that amazing new addition to Doctor Who lore has reared its double head once again, and we get another bi-generation. So now we have two Ronnies. Interesting. Bizarrely, as soon as she splits, it appears that Mrs. Flood's personality takes an immediate turn towards the more submissive, apologizing to the clearly put out new Ronnie, like a secretary trying desperately not to get fired by her boss. We only get a few brief lines from this new Ronnie, but I can tell that she's probably going to be good. She has the arrogant haughtiness of the classic Ronnie. The new villainous duo saunter off to bring terror to the Doctor's life, and the episode finally, truly ends. So there you have it. After 32 years, the Rani has finally returned to the on-screen Doctor Who universe. But aside from that, I'm also genuinely happy that this character has returned. I think the Rani has been an underappreciated villain in Doctor Who history. Yes, she is in some campy stories towards the very bumpy tail end of the classic era, but Kate and O'Mara, the original Rani, brought so much fun and delicious evil energy to the role that all of her stories are still really entertaining to watch, in my opinion. The villain herself is also an interesting and unique take on a nemesis for the Doctor. She's not just a gender-swapped master, which wouldn't even make sense because we've already had the excellent Missy. Rather than just being a completely untethered, power-mad agent of chaos like the Master, the Rani is a colder, more logical enemy. She's not as much of a slave to her passions and emotions as the Master, and doesn't have that weird, deeply damaged love-hate relationship with the Doctor that would cause her to have a cloudy judgment, the way the Master sometimes does. She's a genius-level mad scientist who's simply amoral, and has no problem using and then destroying planets or entire races of people just to conduct one of her grand experiments. She's nearly destroyed human history or the universe every time the Doctor has encountered her. I've been wanting to see an epic Rani story utilizing modern technology and a modern budget for years now, and it looks like now I'm finally going to get my wish. So yes, you can count me as psyched to see the Rani return. If nothing else, I have a feeling that the Doctor facing off against an actual flesh and blood human actor is going to yield far more exciting and interesting scenes than when he faced off against a giant CGI dog. But what did I think about this episode as a whole? Well, I liked it. That's the long and short of it. The first half of the story is all about the rug pull, the build-up to the moment of disaster, with we the viewers not quite sure where it's going to come from. The campy silliness of the setting masks the darkness lying just beneath the surface. The story features not only the stomach-churning moment when thousands of people get launched into space, but an allegory about how systemic oppression breeds extremism, passing to fit into a bigoted society, and the Doctor fighting his dark side. It's generally well-paced and has some solid dialogue, and sets up the stakes of the upcoming two-part finale well. It does have some cringe-inducing musical moments, but the episode wisely cuts away from these scenes quickly to get to the meat of the story, using it more as a backdrop than a moment in the episode, aside from the song at the very end. So I didn't mind it, and I will be honest, Dug-a-Doo kinda slapped. And then, of course, there were the multiple massive reveals. First in the shocking return of Susan in some sort of a psychic connection with the Doctor. And then with the reveal of the classic villain, the Rani. I can't deny it, I was happy to see both of these characters return to the series. It was kind of a smorgasbord of cool moments to have them both come in one episode. You got me, RTD. What can I, you got me. You got me. It wasn't perfect, but it was really good. So I give the Interstellar Song Contest a B+. And that is it. That is my review for this episode. I am very excited about the upcoming finale. I'm very excited to see one of my favorite classic villains return to the modern series finally. You know, I think that's really cool. If you like this video, please give it a like and please consider subscribing. I'm doing episode reviews every week. I've been doing it and I got the Rani thing right. Go watch the Rani video. Go watch the Rani history video. And then if you like that, subscribe. But that's it. That's all I gotta say. So I will see you all at the finale. And until next time, Kay, signing out.